morning. It's Megan and Jason. We're from Owners Applesauce, and we're on our way to Western Sydney this morning. We're going to be meeting Margaret to have a chat and a cup of tea as part of the Cup of Q&A series.
Now, it's Margaret's husband, George, that's actually moved into care, so I think it'd be really good to have a chat to her about that partner journey, what that's like.
Hello! Wow, so good to see you. These are for you.
Tell us a little bit about George. I'd love to build a bit of a picture of what George is like.
A real character, the worst sense of humour, most inappropriate jokes, never wants to offend anyone, but probably does at times, but people take him, he's just a real extrovert, thrives from being with people, not good just on his own, particularly, spent his life selling. And, you know, that's him. He wants to be with people, talk to people. Loves being around. A real social person.
Tell me, when did Alzheimer's set in and how did it change your relationship?
He was officially diagnosed in 2019. I look back at 2018, he was quite bad. I can remember being in bed with a really bad spinal problem and him opening the front door and a neighbour saying, "Oh, how's Margaret?" And him saying, "Oh, she's at work." And I'm thinking, he knows I'm up in this bedroom, you know. Right. And I guess probably a year or so before that, to be honest. So it's been quite a few years. But quite slowly initially, just forgetting things and repeating things. As I say, diagnosed in 19, saw a geriatrician, started on some medication, and that seemed to help. And, you know, the geriatrician said it'll help for a while and it'll slow things down or keep things at bay, but when it stops, it'll stop. And I guess about 2000 and probably a year or so, it worked for a year or two, and it just got worse and worse. And to be honest, yes, it really changed the relationship because I became totally a carer that I didn't really want to be. And looking back, I was thinking about this the other day, the mental strain was just so huge. You know, the 24/7 being asked the same thing over and over and over again. Just not able to have, you know, a conversation. We used to talk about everything together. And you just couldn't because you'd start the conversation, you know, and then he'd ask the same thing again and again and again and just, not able to sort of deal with reality really.
And so was George aware of the diagnosis and, you know, having the symptoms of dementia? How aware was he of that?
He was, yes, he knew he had dementia, but I don't think he realised how it was impacting life. He just thought it was a bit of memory loss, and I guess that's where, and I think that's still the same. Yeah. He thinks it's memory loss and that's where it'll end, you know, and he didn't realise how bad.
And I guess that's what makes that transition into moving into a care community even more difficult. Was he resistant around that, or how did that?
Yes. He doesn't understand that his dementia and his other health issues impact on living at home. He hasn't got a concept about that. Although occasionally he'll say, "Oh, you know," when he was asked at the very end by one, I think it was a social worker in hospital, whether he would be prepared, because of the way the question was framed, you know, you've got lots of care needs and Margaret, you know, she's had a spinal injury, she's not able to physically do those things. He said, "Of course not, I understand that, I wouldn't want her to." And I know in deep down, that's how he would feel, but he's not able to, I don't know, he's not able to conceptualise that anymore. Yeah,
and so was that the point when you were in hospital when you knew that the transition needed to happen?
I think that's the point when I thought it could happen. I knew before then that I couldn't really go on, but I didn't know how to actually make that transition, and hospital gave me a pathway to allow that.
And how did your son adjust to that move? How did he feel about it?
He found it really difficult. He didn't understand how close to the edge I'd been for the last year, and he thought he would be, he said to me, Mum, Dad's only been in hospital 6 weeks. He can't have changed that much. He was at home and you were looking after him. And it was then that I was able to, I had those conversations that said, yes, but I was, almost at the end. I couldn't cope. You won't be here at all next year. I just can't go on. And he actually went and spent a day in the hospital thinking he could take over the care, take a year off work. And within a day, he said to me, Mum, I can't do it. You can't do it. Yeah. He realised, Yeah, it's and it's the 24/7 nature of it. Yeah, but it's really hard it's just hard to come to terms with it.
So I guess you shielded your son from so much of that.
Yes.
Just maintain a strong, positive attitude. Keep going.
I think so.
There's a point though when that impacts your life so much that other people do start noticing that it's really tough on you too.
And friends were actually saying to me, you can't keep doing this, because I think they understood. And as I say, Matt did, but it took a little bit to actually make him realize. He said to me, he actually broke down, and I remember him, us both crying and hugging each other, and he said, I knew this day would come, I just didn't think it would happen quite yet. And I think that was the point.
So, Margaret, what was this like for you? You said before you had a spinal injury, so you were navigating your own physical health problems. You're dealing mentally with this difference between you and your lifelong partner, and then having to take the step of organising that next step of care for him. Like, where do you figure all that out?
Oh, it was terrible. It really, really, really was. It was such an emotional roller coaster, thinking it's the right thing to do and then thinking, but how can I do it? All he wants is to be here with me. How can I not allow that to happen? I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and think, perhaps we could just pay for someone to come, 8 hours a day. Perhaps so. And then I'd think, but what will I do at night when this happens or this happens? And, and then I think, no, it's a roller coaster, I think, and so many tears.
Just that much thinking too is so exhausting.
It is so exhausting. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess using George's hospital stay as that catalyst situation, being able to make a switch. Did you step into respite care initially, or did you go straight into full-time, long-term care?
No, I went straight in, but I think I was saying at that time to George, you just need to be here for a little. He was saying to me, am I going into, is this a hospital? And I said, you just need to step down from a hospital, it's like rehab, you just be here for a while, see how you go. And to some extent, I'm still saying that. I just say whatever I need to say it on the occasion. And I'm finding that really hard, but I'm getting better.
Well, that's been kind on him, but it's also been kind on you.
It is, but it's not easy because it changes the relationship so much. And I think with a husband and wife, with that sort of relationship, we've been honest always. And I find it really hard to actually, lie. But you're right, and it's being kind. And I'm sort of coming to terms with it. But it's not a natural response.
No.
He'd say to me, I'll drive you home. And I'd say, well, you can't drive and you haven't got a car, And now I actually say, okay, that'll be lovely. Because, a moment later, that's gone.
And you really need to train yourself. That language doesn't come naturally at all.
It doesn't.
To lie, no.
It doesn't. It really is, very difficult. And as you say, not natural. So I'm learning. I'm just learning. But yes, being in hospital helped in the sense it gave me an opportunity. And as I say, I had been looking prior. So, I'd got an idea that this was going to happen, and it just made that transition a bit easier.
And how's the transition been for him? How long has he been at Glenmore?
He went in on the 24th of October, 22, so a year and coming up to a year and a half. For him, it's like it was yesterday. It's no different.
Okay.
Every day he says, do I sleep here? And do you live here? And where's the dining room? so it's really not moved on in that sense.
Yeah.
So I'm having to come to terms with the fact that he's not going to settle in the sense of starting to know where things are and all of that sort of things that we normally think.
And that's the expectation you can't help but bring, isn't it? You constantly hope that tomorrow they'll know a little bit more about the environment or the routine. Or...
But you sense he feels comfortable?
Yeah, I do, because everybody's so lovely there. The team really, really are so caring. And even initially, they, it's just little things, calling him by name. When he first went to Glenmore Park, I remember saying to Trisha, the manager, I should get some jogging bottoms and things to make it a bit easier for, and she actually said to me, well, does he normally wear those? And I said, no, he wears a button shirt, trousers, belt. And she says, well, then that's what he should wear, that's him. Yeah. And everyone treats him that way.
Isn't that good?
As he is George, and he's a unique person. He's not a resident or a patient, he's George. And I think that just makes me feel better. And I know it makes him feel better. And they have a laugh with him, still same awful jokes. And they've got used to him, I think, now as well.
I almost want to ask you what some of those jokes are, but I know we can't probably say them here.
No, let's not go there.
So George didn't move into a memory care neighbourhood with Emma?
No, he didn't. And I took just the advice of the team there, and it's a bit like having a child going to sort of kindergarten, and you want them to have friends, and you want everyone to like them. But he's settling in that sense that people are good with him, and he can manage day to day with supervision. He still showers, but he needs someone around, he needs someone to help do some buttons and that sort of thing. So, at the moment, he's there. I mean, maybe it'll come that he needs to go into the memory unit. And I looked at that, and I just was so amazed at what a lovely, lovely area it was. Lots of garden space and greenery, and just beautifully designed. It's where I'd want him to be and to stay at Glenmore Park, because it's, I think it would be, if they tell me it's the right thing, I would believe it's the right thing.
Yeah, it sounds like you can really trust the staff and their judgment.
I do feel that. They've been wonderful, yeah.
And so you were mentioning the team at Glenmore Park. Can you describe some of their qualities?
They're just really caring, and it's a genuine care. And they care about me as well. They know, I walk in and it's, hello, Margaret, how are you? And it's more than, they've seen me in tears regularly. They've, given me a hug. They've reassured me. They've talked to me about looking after myself. They've told me, they tell me about the good times he's had. I'll get there and they'll say, oh, George was singing this morning. They listen to my silly, he only drinks cordial. He won't drink the jug of water, really, that's in there. And they now, one of the team actually makes sure that there's the cordial hidden in the cupboard. They actually put the cordial in for him every day so that he'll drink some fluids. Little things that I rush around in that room every day, and I go into the room and I make sure that the remote control is on the edge of his seat, and I do, really silly things. I put the TV on the channel I think he was going to watch, even though I know he'll probably press a button and it'll be gone. And initially, I think I felt, why aren't they doing that? And it's taken me a while to think, and in fact, Matt, as actually our son, said to me, look, Mum, they care, but nobody cares as much as your own family. And I do get that. But they've been wonderful. The things they've listened to me go on about, and the management team, and they've and at times I remember having a meeting with them, and the manager Trisha saying, and how are you? At the end of me going on about this and that. And, I just broke down, and I thought, and I actually said to her, none of these things really matter, do they? And she said, they do, because they matter to you.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude they had. And it's been, it's just been, they have made such a difference. And yeah, I mean, the fact that they've been available to talk to.
Yeah.
And I trust them. If I ring and they tell me George is okay, I do believe he is okay, you know. So yeah, I feel part of a community. Actually now I feel, you know, it's been a long haul. We've been there over the year and seen it grow, and you know, I just feel part of that.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a culture, like a growing culture.
There is, and the team have been new because, of course, you know, the actual community's been growing, and yeah, there is a culture. There's a culture of caring and compassion.
And how has that helped you on your journey of, you know, you were talking about guilt, and then there's relief, and then there's guilt, and that seesaw. How has that helped you?
I think it's just their continual reassurance and understanding, you know, that I know that they've seen this. I know it's not unique to me. I understand. And they, you know, they'll just say to me, Margaret, you don't need to be here every day. You can have a day off. But they'll equally say to me, and they have, if you feel you need to come in, you come in. And that's the other thing that's so good. I can go any time. And because we've got family in the UK, I was taking my iPad in and FaceTiming and going in at 8 at night and staying till 10. Yeah. And it was okay. And I'd take the dog. And, you know, it's things like that, and there was no problem with any of that.
So it feels a bit more like an extension of a home environment as opposed to a completely different environment.
For me, it is. And you know, it's hard because George would still say, I want to come home every day. I'll come with you. And it breaks my heart. I'm toughening up to it a bit. You know, I cry less, but I still cry. But all of the things that they've done have just helped make it a little bit more bearable.
So it sounds like you've built a really great relationship with the team. Yeah. What's your relationship with George like now?
It's much better.
Okay.
For me, it's much better, and it's good for him. I mean, every day I go in, and this is just lovely. It's him, it's George. He says to me, I love you so much. And we have a bit of it's a sort of funny, jokey line. He says, always have, always will. And I say the same to him. But I'm much more patient. And I actually recognise that. You know, he will still ask me the same thing. We have the same, you know, a cyclical conversation. Yeah. It'll only be a moment and, you know, he'll ask the same question. But I'm able to be patient because it's a period of time. So that's made me feel much more like his wife again and less like I'm not his carer. And that's the hard thing, I think, transitioning away from that, because you're sort of still trying to be that carer for a while. And yeah, I mean, I still am in some ways. I still do washing things and whatever. But anyway, but yes, it's made things much better, and I know that. Yeah. And I know that I couldn't be like that if he was at home, and I wasn't. And I don't think I don't regret it in the sense that I do understand I couldn't be like that when he was here all the time. It was impossible for me to be that tolerant. He has a glass of red wine a night now. Geriatrician said it would be a great idea. I really resisted it for a while because here I couldn't cope with it because he'd have a glass and then he wouldn't know he'd had a glass and he'd want another glass and another glass and, you know, had all the falls risk and all of these things and arguments. And it really was becoming an issue. Took me a long time, but, you know, they said, we can manage it.
If they can control
it. And they do.
Yeah.
They gave him a glass, and the geriatrician advised 2 small glasses because then he feels he's got some control, you know. And he can ask and he gets his wine. We leave the wine in the nurse's station or it'll all be gone. And, and those sorts of things. So I can see he gets some happiness, you know, and so that makes me feel better. Overall it is a much better relationship. The guilt's still there for me, but it's less, and I sort of have to accept it and to an extent say that's how it is, you know. But so I can see lots of positive things.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a huge process of love that still changes and grows, and something you can't prepare for in this
You
stage of
can't.
your life, but you need to adapt.
Yeah, I think it's just, in a sense, someone said to me, the more you love someone, the harder it is. And I think that's true. And I do love him very much. And I find, God, it's a gold theory now. I do find, I leave on some days and I will be really upset. You say to me, I just want to be with you. You sleep here and I'll sleep in the chair. And, it still breaks my heart. But I'm coming to terms with, I know it's the right thing. And, I can see the stages I've gone through as well now.
Yeah.
And I can see, how irritable I was with other people initially. And the whole grief, that it's grief. And I think you're right, you go through different stages. And I'm at, another stage now. And I'm sure there are more to come.
Yeah.
How beautiful, though, in a way, that you get that frequent reminder from George how much he loves you,
I do.
that he wants that proximity and that closeness in you. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, it is. And he, hold my hand and say, I love you, and, just want to be with you, and are you okay? And, then he'll say to me, I hope you've got enough money, and are you okay? And, how can you manage on your own? And, then he starts getting that worried cycle. But it's still hard work. The visits are hard. Yeah. They're hard work emotionally. Yeah. Because you need to be upbeat for that time. And that's why the team have helped me as well. And I've come to the realisation I don't have to be there for 2 hours. I can do an hour because it's no different to him. Because that's so exhausting. The whole upbeat, you're doing well and everything's okay and yes, it's all wonderful and, and then you can only do that for so long. Yeah, and you need to come away and breathe and yeah.
And has George formed some friendships in Glenmore Park?
Yes, I think he has. He sort of doesn't know he has because he doesn't remember people, but they remember him. There's a lot of people there who've, I'm told there are a lot of people who've got dementia, but a lot of people who haven't, and a lot of people whose dementia isn't at the same level as George's. And obviously they can remember his name. Yeah. And actually they do have name badges sometimes that they wear. So that's helpful for them, for those like George. And they know he's quite a character. And they'll actually say to me things, George made us laugh today. And, George did this and whatever. And sometimes I cringe. But, yeah, he has. So that's nice too. Yeah.
And do your friends feel, do they feel welcome visiting him there?
Yeah, his friends, he's so blessed that we do have lots of people visiting. We're part of a church community as well. And he's got some good friends from, they were part of a Grumpy's group, and they used to go off together and whatever. And some of them come very regularly, there's a couple who come every week, a particular day every week. And the things that, the setup at the community really helps because I can't take George out anymore physically. And I've also found that mentally it's not particularly good for him. He doesn't know where he is. He wants the toilet as soon as you've got there. And, it's fraught with difficulties. But because of the setup, when particular friends come, we'll go to the games room and they'll play, I can't remember if it's pool or snooker, but the one you don't have to look at stripes and things, the other one. And he can remember the colours and the order because he's played that for years. And he can actually have a game, and it does pretty well. So he'll have a game there. Yeah. And he often thinks he's in a hotel. But it's nice for the visitors, they can actually come and do that. We've got another couple who go every Sunday morning after they've been to church and they take him for a coffee at the coffee shop at the cafe. And he thinks, it's going out. Yeah. And another couple of people go and actually sit with them now. Apparently they've got this little group and that's their Sunday morning. So, that really, it just helps because, he can have people and people, that was really important to me and it's really worked out. It's, from the minute you walk through the door, it's a lovely environment to be in.
Yeah, and that cultivates interaction.
It does. Yeah. You can make a cup of coffee for people. I mean, COVID willing and all of that. Yeah. But, outside of the cafe, you can do that. You can sit I usually make a point of getting George to sit in the garden, or if it's too hot, there's an area with a balcony. So we go and sit there and you can see the birds, you can see the trees. Beautiful. And It is. It makes a difference. It makes a difference to me as well. And I, put on my Spotify on my phone or whatever, and we can listen to some older music or whatever, and just for a little while until it gets too difficult, and then we can play cards, which is the go-to at the moment. I don't know what happens when the cards end, but So he gets lots of visitors, and they have all said how I think people have a perception of what it's going to be like, and this care community at Glenmore Park is very different to most people's perception. I did look at another couple before, when I was still at the stage of denial. I wasn't really doing anything. And, clearly things have moved on generally but, just what Glenmore Park could offer. And, equally it's 5 minutes away, which is an enormous
bonus.
Yeah.
Margaret, looking back, it feels very much like George is in the right place for him right now. I'm curious, do you feel in a better place?
I do. Yeah. When I come home, I actually, and that was even really from fairly early on, I sort of take this literal deep breath and I feel I can relax. My home is my home. It's a sort of peaceful haven again, which it was once with George, but it wasn't those last few years. And when I'm here, I can relax, I can do something, have girlfriends over, I can watch television, and, it's just calm, and it's good, and it is good for me. The sadness is there, the guilt's there, they're lessening, but it is better for me, and I know, and it is really such a learning thing. I used to say, I've put Dad in a home. The guilt's all on me because I've done this. And Matt said to me, "No, you haven't. Dementia's put in there, Mum. Not you." And it's coming to terms with all those sorts of things. But the team and the fact that it is a community have helped me on the journey so much.
And how's your son? How's Matt with his?
He's good. He's good. He's sad. He's very sad at times, and sometimes we both, hug outside and cry. But he's very happy with everything. He was there for that year visiting regularly. Now he's FaceTiming regularly, and so the team, if George can't answer it, which he often can't, a team member will pop in and answer the iPad for him. So he
still has that connection.
He does, and it's important.
Yeah. And so what sort of words of strength could you give others that are going through this same sort of journey, Margaret?
Just try not to be so hard on yourself. I think we all are, because we love the person so much, and we just feel we should be able to do things. It's just giving yourself that sort of break, and just accepting that you're not superhuman, and thinking that people, and it was Glenmore Park again that made me sort of think about this. Their team go home after 8 hours. They have a really tough job there at times, but they do go home and they switch off. You're not doing that when you're caring for someone, particularly with dementia and other, a lot of people have other issues too. You'd never get a moment, really. You might get 2 hours where you nip out, but it's just not enough, and you're not superhuman. So just be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Margaret, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Lots of love for you and George.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think your journey can help a lot of families and a lot of couples maybe facing a similar situation, and that juggle with, everything just becoming too much.
I hope so. Yeah, I think talking to other people has helped me. And we're all different. Every journey's different, but it's just good to know that other people struggle. I think it's not an easy path. Yeah, and thank you for the lovely cake.
Oh, anytime.
Yummy.
Let's eat more cake.